What if everything you've been taught about building wealth has been completely backwards? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Picture this scenario. You've been chasing financial success for years, maybe even decades. You've read the books, followed the strategies, worked the extra hours, and yet somehow that elusive sense of true prosperity always seems just one step ahead of you. Has this ever happened to you? You make more money, but you still feel financially anxious. You achieve a goal, but the satisfaction fades faster than you expected. You look at your bank account and wonder why, despite your efforts, you still don't feel truly wealthy. Here's what most people don't realize, and what you're about to discover might surprise you. Wealth isn't something you acquire from the outside world. It's not a destination you arrive at after collecting enough zeros in your bank account. The most successful people throughout history understood a profound secret that completely transforms how prosperity flows into your life. Wealth is not something external to chase, but an internal state to activate. Think about it for a moment. Every millionaire, every successful entrepreneur, every person who has created lasting abundance started with exactly the same thing you have right now: a mind. The difference wasn't their circumstances, their connections, or even their opportunities. The difference was their internal relationship with wealth itself. While most people spend their entire lives running toward money, as if it's constantly escaping them, true prosperity begins the moment you recognize that abundance already exists within your consciousness. This isn't some feel-good philosophy or wishful thinking. This is about understanding how wealth actually works at its core. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share with you will fundamentally shift how you approach not just money, but success in every area of your life. The transformation from "someday I'll be rich" to "I am already wealthy" in essence might sound subtle, but it's the difference between a life of constant striving and a life of natural abundance. When you operate from this understanding, everything changes: how you make decisions, how you carry yourself, how opportunities show up in your life, and most importantly, how money responds to your energy. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to change their bank account without first restructuring their mental landscape. They focus on external strategies while ignoring the internal environment that determines whether wealth can actually take root and multiply in their lives. It's like trying to grow a garden in poisoned soil. No matter how good the seeds or how much effort you put in, nothing sustainable will grow. Your inner world serves as the fertile ground where prosperity either flourishes or withers. This isn't about positive thinking alone, though mindset matters tremendously. This is about creating an internal environment that naturally attracts and sustains abundance through aligned thoughts, beliefs, and emotional states. It's about becoming the kind of person who doesn't just temporarily accumulate money, but who becomes a living magnet for wealth in all its forms. The most fascinating part is that this transformation can begin happening immediately, regardless of your current financial situation. You don't need to wait for permission. You don't need perfect circumstances, and you don't need anyone else to validate your worthiness of abundance. What you need is to understand how to activate the wealth consciousness that already exists within you, and that's exactly where we're heading next. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's a hidden truth about wealth that most people discover far too late in their journey. The real transformation happens when you understand that identity precedes income in every single case. This isn't just a motivational concept. It's the fundamental mechanism behind how prosperity actually works. Think about the most successful people you know or have studied. Every single one of them embodied wealth consciousness long before their bank accounts reflected it. They didn't wait to feel wealthy after accumulating money. They carried themselves with the energy of prosperity while they were still building their empire. When you walk into a room, when you speak, when you make decisions, all of these actions stem from your internal identity as either a prosperous person or someone still waiting to become prosperous. Here's where most people get this backwards. They think the money will change how they feel about themselves, but the truth is, your identity as a wealthy person must be established internally first. When you operate from this wealthy identity, Money becomes a natural consequence rather than the cause of your self-worth. The external world simply mirrors back what you've already decided about yourself on the inside. But there's something even deeper blocking most people from this transformation. And it's so subtle that they don't even realize it's happening. You've been programmed with what I call the scarcity illusion, and it's been shaping your financial reality since childhood without your conscious awareness. Scarcity isn't an economic reality. It's a psychological script that runs in the background of your mind. Every time you've heard phrases like, money doesn't grow on trees, or there's never enough to go around, these weren't just casual comments. They became foundational beliefs that now limit your financial potential. These statements feel factual because they've been repeated so often, but they're actually conditioning that creates artificial boundaries around what you believe is possible for your life. The impact of this programming is staggering. It shows up in how you hesitate before investing in yourself, how you shrink your dreams to fit what seems affordable, how you delay joy until you make enough money to justify it. Most people don't realize they're living inside invisible walls built from inherited beliefs about limitation and struggle. But here's the breakthrough moment that changes everything. When you recognize that these boundaries were never real to begin with, the scarcity mindset operates like a filter over your perception, showing you only evidence that supports lack while hiding the abundance that's always been available. Behind the scenes, your decisions, your energy, your entire approach to opportunities has been shaped by this illusion. The journey from scarcity to abundance isn't about learning new strategies or finding better opportunities, though those matter. It's about removing the mental barriers that have been blocking your natural capacity to create and receive wealth. When you understand how these psychological scripts have been running your financial life, you can begin to rewrite them completely. This revelation opens up possibilities that most people never even consider, because they've been living inside a story that isn't even theirs. Write in the comments, "I see the illusion now," if this is starting to make sense to you. The moment you begin to see through this illusion, something powerful shifts inside you. But there's another layer we need to explore. Behind every financial limitation you're experiencing right now lies a belief system that was installed without your permission. These aren't your beliefs. They're inherited programming that's been running your financial decisions from the shadows. This is where the real transformation begins, and it requires asking yourself some uncomfortable questions that most people avoid their entire lives. You need to examine where you learned your beliefs about money and wealth. Who taught you what was possible? Was it a parent who constantly worried about bills? A teacher who said money isn't everything whenever someone showed ambition? What version of wealth was modeled in your childhood? Was it something to be feared, envied, or pursued with guilt? These questions matter because the impact goes far deeper than you realize. Every fear you attach to having more money, every hesitation before making an investment in yourself, every time you downplay your success, all of these responses are echoes from your past. You cannot change beliefs you're unwilling to examine and understand. The hidden truth is that most of your financial struggles aren't about your circumstances. They're about the invisible programming that's been making your decisions for you. But here's where it gets even more revealing. Once you start questioning these inherited beliefs, you'll discover another massive barrier that's been blocking your prosperity journey. It's the way scarcity thinking has trained you to see other people's success as a threat to your own. This creates one of the most destructive mindsets possible when it comes to building wealth. The scarcity-based belief that the world is a fixed pie, where someone else's success automatically means less for you, has been sabotaging your financial growth in ways you probably haven't even noticed. This perspective creates competition, where there should be collaboration, envy, where there should be inspiration, and distrust where there should be community. None of these emotional states are fertile ground for prosperity to flourish in your life. True abundance thinking operates from a completely different paradigm. It recognizes that wealth isn't a limited resource that gets depleted when others succeed. When you believe there's genuinely enough for everyone, something remarkable happens to your perception. You start seeing opportunities where you once saw limitations. Other people's success becomes proof of what's possible rather than evidence of what you're missing. This shift transforms everything about how you move through the world. Instead of feeling threatened by someone else's breakthrough, you feel inspired. Instead of competing for scraps, you start collaborating to expand the entire landscape of possibility. The energy you once wasted on envy and comparison becomes available for creating your own unique path to prosperity. Behind the scenes, this mental transformation creates a ripple effect that touches every aspect of your financial life. Your decision-making becomes clearer because you're no longer operating from fear. Your relationships improve because you're not secretly resenting others' success. Your creativity expands because you're focused on contribution rather than competition. Write in the comments, "Abundance for all," if you're ready to make this mindset shift. Now, once you've made this fundamental shift from scarcity to abundance thinking, you're ready to understand something that will completely revolutionize your approach to wealth building. Every person walking this earth operates from what I call an internal wealth operating system. Just like the software running on your computer, this system operates quietly in the background, making thousands of micro decisions about money without your conscious awareness. Here's the hidden truth that most people never discover. If your operating system is still running on outdated scarcity code, it doesn't matter how sophisticated your financial strategies are or how hard you work. The results will always be limited, inconsistent, or frustratingly temporary. You can set ambitious goals, recite powerful affirmations, even take massive action, but if your subconscious system is still programmed with limitation beliefs, something will always pull you back. The transformation happens when you recognize that you have complete control over upgrading this internal system. Most people assume their beliefs about money are hardwired truths, carved in stone by their upbringing or circumstances. But this is one of the biggest misconceptions about how the mind actually works. Your beliefs about money aren't facts. They're mental habits that have been reinforced through repetition over time. Think about this for a moment. Every belief you hold about wealth, every assumption about what's possible for someone like you, every emotional reaction you have when money comes up in conversation, all of these responses are simply patterns that your mind has practiced until they became automatic. The incredible news is that mental habits can be changed through conscious disruption and intentional repetition, just like any other habit. Behind the scenes, your emotional reactions to money discussions are actually diagnostic tools, showing you exactly where your internal programming needs an upgrade. When someone talks about investment opportunities, do you feel excitement or anxiety? When you think about asking for a raise, do you feel confident or unworthy? When you see someone else's financial success, do you feel inspired or inadequate? These emotional responses reveal where your outdated software is still running patterns that no longer serve your growth. The journey of upgrading your wealth operating system starts with becoming aware of these automatic responses. You begin to notice the gap between how you want to feel about money and how you actually feel. You start catching yourself when old programming tries to run the show. Each time you interrupt a limiting belief and consciously choose a more empowering perspective, you're literally rewiring your internal system. This process creates a ripple effect that impacts every financial decision you make. Your relationship with risk changes because fear no longer dominates your choices. Your ability to receive opportunities expands because you're no longer blocking them with unworthiness. Your capacity to think bigger grows because limitation beliefs stop shrinking your vision before it can fully form. Write in the comments, "Upgrading now," if you're ready to start rewiring your wealth operating system. The moment you start upgrading your internal operating system, there's a crucial step that accelerates this transformation exponentially. You need to deliberately surround yourself with abundance evidence, and this goes far beyond just reading success stories or watching motivational videos. This is about strategically immersing yourself in new conversations, stories, and realities that reflect the life you're creating. Here's what happens behind the scenes when you make this shift. If you've always believed that money only comes through struggle and sacrifice, your mind has been filtering out all evidence to the contrary. You literally cannot see examples of people who earn with joy, create wealth through passion, or build prosperity while maintaining balance. It's not that these examples don't exist. You're Current programming simply makes them invisible to you. The hidden truth about how your mind works is that it resists what it doesn't believe is possible. This resistance isn't just philosophical, it's neurological. Your brain is designed to seek out information that confirms your existing beliefs while dismissing anything that challenges them. So when you expand what your mind sees as normal and achievable, you're not just changing your perspective, you're literally rewiring your neural pathways to recognize opportunities that were always there. This transformation impacts every aspect of your financial journey. Suddenly, you start noticing business models you never considered before. Conversations about money feel different because you're hearing possibilities instead of limitations. Investment opportunities that once seemed risky or impossible begin to feel accessible and aligned. But there's something even more fundamental happening during this process, and it reveals the deepest secret about how wealth actually operates. Every fortune that has ever been created began in exactly the same place, in someone's mind, long before it appeared in their bank account. This isn't metaphysical thinking. This is the practical reality of how all creation works. Your thoughts are functioning like an invisible currency system, constantly making deposits into your mental wealth or withdrawals from it. Every single day, your mind is either compounding possibility or reinforcing limitation through the quality of thoughts you're entertaining. The person who consistently thinks in terms of not enough, I can't afford that, or money is hard to come by, is operating from an internal deficit, regardless of what their actual income might be. Conversely, abundant thinkers are creating interest on invisible assets that will soon become visible in their physical reality. They're not delusional or unrealistic. They're working with the fundamental principle that governs all. Manifestation. The external world always follows the internal blueprint, not the other way around. This revelation changes everything about how you approach wealth building. Instead of trying to force external circumstances to create internal confidence, you begin building internal wealth that naturally attracts external abundance. Your daily thought patterns become as important as your daily actions, because you understand they're creating the energetic foundation for everything else. Write in the comments, thoughts create wealth, if this connection is becoming clear to you. Understanding this connection between thoughts and wealth creation opens up an extraordinary revelation about how your brain actually functions. Neuroscience has proven something that successful people have intuitively known for centuries. Your brain filters every single experience through the lens you provide it. This isn't just psychology. This is measurable, observable brain science that explains why some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities while others struggle despite working just as hard. When you constantly focus on scarcity, limitation, or financial struggle, your mind becomes a highly efficient problem detection machine. It notices only threats to your security, obstacles to your progress, and evidence that confirms your fears about money. You walk through the same world as everyone else, but your brain is literally screening out anything that doesn't match your expectation of struggle. It's like wearing glasses that only let you see problems while making solutions invisible. The transformation happens when you begin feeding your mind with empowering wealth thoughts consistently. Your brain starts seeking alignment, growth opportunities, and new possibilities that were always present but previously invisible to you. The same conversation that once triggered anxiety about money now reveals an investment idea. The same networking event that felt overwhelming now presents 3 potential collaborations. Nothing in the external world changed. Your internal filtering system upgraded. This discovery leads to one of the most powerful practices that separates true mental millionaires from everyone else. They treat their mind like a high-performing asset that requires careful management and strategic oversight. Just as you wouldn't allow toxic waste to be dumped into a pristine investment property, they don't allow negative thoughts to flood their inner economy without intervention. Behind the scenes, this mental discipline creates an extraordinary ripple effect. They curate their mental environment with the same precision a professional investor uses to build a portfolio. Every thought is evaluated. Does this serve my vision or sabotage it? Does this expand my possibilities or contract them? They understand that thought is energy, and energy creates everything in their external reality, so they guard their mental space like the valuable asset. It truly is. This isn't about forced positivity or pretending problems don't exist. It's about becoming selective with what thoughts you give your sustained attention to. When a limiting thought arises, and they always do, a mental millionaire acknowledges it, but doesn't allow it to set up permanent residence in their consciousness. They redirect their focus toward thoughts that align with their wealth vision. The impact of this practice extends far beyond just feeling better about money. Your decision-making becomes sharper because you're operating from clarity rather than fear. Your creativity expands because your mind isn't consumed with worst-case scenarios. Your confidence grows because you're consistently feeding yourself thoughts that reinforce your capability rather than your limitations. What's fascinating is how this mental discipline begins to attract external support almost automatically. People gravitate toward those who carry wealth consciousness because that energy is magnetic and inspiring. Write in the comments, "I guard my mind," if you're ready to start managing your thoughts like a valuable asset. This magnetic quality that comes from managing your thoughts strategically reveals something even deeper about wealth creation that most people completely overlook. While everyone focuses on external strategies and tactical approaches, there's an invisible form of capital that determines your capacity to actually build and sustain prosperity. It's called emotional capital, and it's perhaps the most valuable asset you can develop on your journey to financial freedom. Emotional capital is the energy you carry within your nervous system, your inner resilience, clarity, and confidence that you bring into every situation. Unlike financial capital that's stored in banks, this form of wealth lives inside you and governs absolutely everything from your decision-making ability to your creative problem-solving capacity. When your emotional capital is high, you remain steady under pressure, hopeful during uncertainty, and clear-minded when opportunities arise that require quick thinking. But here's what happens behind the scenes when emotional capital gets depleted, and this explains why so many people struggle financially despite having good strategies. Your vision shrinks dramatically, your confidence weakens, and you start making decisions from fear rather than wisdom. You become reactive instead of responsive, which means you miss opportunities that were right in front of you, or you make choices that sabotage your long-term prosperity. The transformation comes when you understand that building emotional capital isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending everything is fine when it's not. True emotional mastery means developing the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those emotions. It's about staying grounded during uncertainty, reframing challenges as growth opportunities, and moving through discomfort without collapsing into despair or panic. This emotional strength creates the exact mental environment where wealth can naturally thrive. Think about the most successful people you know. They're not necessarily the ones who never face difficulties, but they're the ones who maintain their composure and clear thinking when everyone else is losing their minds. They've developed the internal capacity to hold space for both challenge and possibility simultaneously. The impact of high emotional capital on your financial life is extraordinary. When you're emotionally regulated, you make better investment decisions because fear isn't clouding your judgment. You negotiate more effectively because desperation isn't driving your actions. You take calculated risks that others avoid because anxiety isn't paralyzing your ability to move forward. You recover from setbacks faster because resilience is built into your nervous system. Most people spend their emotional capital recklessly without even realizing it, exhausting themselves on worry, comparison, and trying to control things that are completely outside their influence. But when you learn to protect and build this invisible asset deliberately, everything about your relationship with money and success begins to shift in profound ways. Write in the comments, "Building emotional wealth," if you're recognizing how crucial this inner resilience really is. Now, recognizing the crucial importance of emotional resilience brings us to a revelation that changes how you approach every single day. You need to start protecting your energy with the same vigilance you'd use to protect your money, because energy depletion is one of the fastest ways to sabotage your wealth-building journey without even realizing what's happening. The hidden truth is that you're constantly making invisible transactions throughout your day. Every decision about what media you consume, what conversations you engage in, and what habits you maintain is either adding to or subtracting from your emotional wealth. Most people are completely unconscious of these energy exchanges, allowing their reserves to drain through mindless scrolling, toxic relationships, or environments that leave them feeling depleted and scattered. When you begin tracking what drains your emotional reserves versus what replenishes them, you discover something powerful. You're not just protecting your peace of mind, you're protecting your productivity, your prosperity, and your potential. High emotional capital gives you the courage to expand when fear whispers to contract. It provides the mental clarity to recognize opportunities when they appear and the confidence to act on them decisively. This awareness leads to understanding something even more profound about how success actually works behind the scenes. You're walking through life with a set of invisible accounts that are far more influential than your bank accounts. These mental bank accounts hold your confidence, your self-worth, your emotional resilience, and your vision for what's possible. When these mental reserves are full, you move through the world with greater courage and creativity. You take calculated risks. You speak up for your ideas. You invest in your growth, and you pursue opportunities that align with your vision. But when these accounts are overdrawn, something completely different happens. You hesitate when you should move forward. You self-sabotage when success starts to feel too unfamiliar, and you make decisions from fear rather than wisdom. The transformation happens when you realize that every promise you keep to yourself makes a deposit into these mental accounts, while every act of self-betrayal creates a withdrawal from your internal capital. When you say you'll wake up early and then hit snooze, when you commit to a project and then procrastinate, when you set a boundary and then allow it to be crossed, each of these moments either builds or diminishes your mental wealth. The impact on your financial life is immediate and measurable. People with high mental bank balances aren't necessarily the most talented or experienced, but they're the ones who trust themselves to follow through. They've built internal evidence that they can figure things out, rise to meet challenges, and recover from setbacks. This self-trust becomes the foundation for every bold decision they make. Write in the comments, "I'm building internal wealth," if you're ready to start managing these invisible accounts deliberately. This self-trust that forms the foundation of bold decision-making reveals one of the most powerful secrets about how confidence actually develops. Most people think confidence is something you either have or you don't, but the hidden truth is that confidence grows through creating consistent deposits of self-respect and follow-through. It's not a personality trait, it's an account balance that you build through evidence. Every time you avoid procrastination when your mind wants to delay, every time you speak up for your beliefs when it would be easier to stay quiet, every time you complete difficult choices that align with your values rather than taking the comfortable path, each of these moments adds real currency to your mental reserves. The transformation happens because these aren't just good habits. They're proof to yourself that you can be trusted with bigger opportunities and greater responsibilities. Behind the scenes, these small deposits made consistently over time accumulate into something incredibly powerful. They build an inner strength that supports bigger risks and greater expansion because you have a track record with yourself. When a major opportunity comes along that requires stepping outside your comfort zone, you don't panic or freeze because you've already proven to yourself countless times that you can handle discomfort and uncertainty. But there's an even deeper layer to this that determines the ultimate ceiling on everything you'll achieve in life. Your identity account, your deepest self-image about who you are and what you're capable of, sets the absolute limit on your external results. This operates so subtly that most people never realize it's happening. Yet it's the invisible force that either supports or sabotages every goal they set. If you see yourself at your core as someone who struggles, someone who never quite gets ahead, or someone who has to work twice as hard for half the results, you'll unconsciously maintain that identity through your actions. Not because you want to struggle, but because your mind feels safe operating within familiar boundaries. Even when those boundaries are painful, your subconscious will find ways to ensure your external reality matches your internal self-concept. The revelation comes when you understand that the opposite is equally true. When you begin to view yourself as someone who is powerful, capable, and naturally aligned with success, something remarkable starts happening. External circumstances begin adjusting to match the self-image you hold with emotional intensity. Opportunities that were invisible before suddenly become obvious. Conversations shift in your favor. Resources appear. People respond to you differently. This isn't magical thinking. It's the natural consequence of alignment. When your identity shifts, your behavior shifts automatically. You make different choices, take different risks, and show up with different energy. The world simply responds to who you're being, and who you're being flows directly from who you believe yourself to be, at the deepest level. Write in the comments, "I am powerful and capable," if you're ready to start upgrading your identity account. This identity transformation becomes even more powerful when you understand how to accelerate it using a technique that separates true mental millionaires from everyone else. The hidden truth is that before anything becomes reality in your physical world, it must first live vividly in your mind. This isn't just wishful thinking. This is how every significant achievement throughout history has been created. Millionaires don't just visualize their goals in abstract terms. They visualize themselves achieving those goals with incredible specificity and emotional intensity. They see the exact scenes, hear the actual conversations, and most importantly, they feel the emotions of success flowing through their body. This mental rehearsal creates something neuroscience calls neural familiarity. Your brain begins building pathways that make success feel normal rather than foreign. The transformation happens because when the moment eventually arrives in real life, it doesn't feel like a breakthrough that catches you off guard. It feels like a return to something familiar, something you've already experienced countless times in your mind. Your nervous system remains calm, your confidence stays high, and you perform naturally because you've already been there mentally. Behind the scenes, this process is rewiring your entire relationship with success. Most people feel anxious or overwhelmed when big opportunities appear because their brain interprets success as unfamiliar territory. But when you've been mentally rehearsing success with emotional intensity, your subconscious mind treats achievement as something expected rather than surprising. The real impact comes when you make visualization a daily discipline rather than an occasional practice. Just 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes before sleep. These brief moments of mental rehearsal will alter your trajectory more dramatically than hours of scattered action without clear direction. When your mind knows exactly where it's going, something remarkable happens to your decision-making process. You start noticing different choices throughout your day, because your brain is now filtering for opportunities that align with your vision. You speak with different confidence because you've already experienced yourself succeeding. You pursue opportunities that you previously ignored or feared because they now feel like natural steps toward a destination you've already visited mentally. This isn't about fantasy or escapism. This is about training your nervous system to become comfortable with the level of success you're moving toward. Most people sabotage their own growth because achievement feels too unfamiliar, too overwhelming, too different from their current reality. But when you've been mentally living in that success consistently, your system learns to recognize it as home rather than foreign territory. The journey of wealth creation becomes smoother because you're no longer fighting against your own psychology. Your internal world and external goals are finally aligned. Write in the comments, "I see my success clearly," if you're ready to start this powerful mental rehearsal practice. This alignment between your internal world and external goals creates the perfect foundation for understanding one of the most overlooked aspects of wealth creation. The language you use, both in conversations with others and in the constant dialogue running in your mind, is actually shaping your financial reality in ways that most people never recognize. Words aren't just communication tools. They carry belief and literally shape reality through their impact on your nervous system and decision-making process. The wealthy mind operates from a completely different linguistic framework than the scarcity-conditioned mind. Instead of speaking from limitation, every word is chosen with intention and ownership of their financial future. Think about the difference between saying, "I can't afford that," versus, "That's not a priority for me right now." The first statement reinforces a sense of powerlessness and lack, while the second acknowledges choice and control. When you replace phrases like, "I always mess up" with, "I'm building new habits," you're not just being more positive, you're aligning your speech with growth rather than limitation. These subtle shifts have a profound impact on how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. Behind the scenes, this linguistic transformation affects every aspect of your wealth journey. Your brain responds to the language you use by creating neural pathways that either support expansion or reinforce contraction. When you consistently speak from abundance, your mind starts seeking evidence to support that perspective. When you speak from scarcity, your attention focuses on confirming that limitation. But there's an even deeper layer to this that most people completely ignore, and it's happening inside your mind every single moment of every day. The way you speak to yourself in your internal dialogue has more influence on your financial success than almost any external strategy you could implement. Most people would never speak to another human being the way they speak to themselves, yet they wonder why their confidence stays low and their results remain mediocre. Wealthy minds practice self-respect even in moments of failure or disappointment. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible at this," when something doesn't work out, they reframe it as, "This was valuable feedback." Instead of, "I never get it right," they choose, "I'm learning and improving." This isn't just feel-good psychology. Your self-talk is fundamental to emotional regulation, decision-making, and the self-image that determines your ceiling for success. You literally cannot build sustainable wealth on a foundation of poor internal dialogue, because that inner voice influences every choice you make. It affects whether you take calculated risks, whether you speak up for what you're worth, whether you persist through challenges, and whether you even notice opportunities when they appear. The transformation happens when you realize that changing your language is changing your reality, one word at a time. Write in the comments, "My words create my world," if you're beginning to understand the power of conscious language. This conscious use of language creates the perfect foundation for understanding one of the most transformative practices that separates those who build lasting wealth from those who struggle despite their efforts. It's the practice of gratitude, but not in the way most people think about it. This isn't about being thankful for what you already have while secretly wishing for more. This is about understanding that gratitude actually multiplies what you possess by fundamentally expanding your perception of abundance. When you practice gratitude with intention, something remarkable happens to your mental framework. It literally turns ordinary moments into treasures and reframes obstacles as disguised blessings working in your favor. Most people wait for good things to happen before feeling grateful, but wealth-conscious individuals understand that gratitude doesn't just react to good. It creates good by tuning your mind to recognize abundance where others see lack, peace where others feel panic. The hidden truth behind this transformation is that gratitude acts like a lens that changes what you're able to perceive in your current reality. When your mind is trained to look for what's working, what's valuable, and what's possible, you start noticing opportunities and resources that were invisible before. Your brain begins filtering experiences through appreciation rather than complaint, which completely changes the quality of decisions you make and the energy you bring to every situation. Behind the scenes, this shift builds something even more valuable than immediate good feelings. It builds emotional resilience that becomes your secret weapon during challenging times. When facing disappointment, setbacks, or uncertainty, your ability to find something worth appreciating becomes a lifeline that keeps you moving forward when others give up. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about maintaining access to your creative problem-solving abilities, even when circumstances feel overwhelming. Grateful people develop a magnetic presence that's impossible to fake. They become easier to collaborate with, more resilient during obstacles, and genuinely more enjoyable to be around. This magnetic quality attracts opportunities, connections, and support because they bring steady, positive energy into every interaction and situation they encounter. People naturally want to work with, invest in, and support those who make them feel good about themselves and the possibilities around them. The impact on your wealth journey is immediate and measurable. Grateful thinking keeps you in a state of abundance consciousness, which means you make financial decisions from confidence rather than fear. You see possibilities where others see problems. You remain open to receiving unexpected opportunities because your mind isn't closed off by disappointment or resentment. This creates a positive feedback loop where appreciation generates more experiences worth appreciating, which builds stronger emotional resilience, which attracts more support and opportunities. Write in the comments, "Gratitude multiplies wealth," if you're ready to start using appreciation as a strategic practice for abundance. This positive feedback loop of gratitude and abundance consciousness leads us to understand something that most people never grasp about true wealth creation. While everyone obsesses over money and financial strategies, there are three resources that are infinitely more valuable, because once they're spent, they can never be recovered. These are your time, your energy, and your focus. And how you manage these invisible currencies determines whether you'll create lasting prosperity or remain stuck in cycles of struggle. The hidden truth that mentally wealthy individuals understand is that these three assets are sacred because they form the foundation of everything else you'll ever build. You can lose money and make it back, but time once spent is gone forever. Energy once drained doesn't automatically refill, and focus once scattered requires tremendous discipline to recenter. Most people leak these precious resources all day long through overthinking, overcommitting, and people-pleasing, never realizing they're essentially giving away their most valuable possessions. Behind the scenes, the quality of your energy determines the quality of your life far more than the quantity of hours you work. You've probably experienced this yourself. There are days when you accomplish more in 2 focused hours than in an entire week of scattered effort. This isn't coincidence. It's the difference between operating from aligned energy versus depleted energy, between focused attention versus fragmented attention. The transformation happens when you start treating these invisible currencies with the same respect you'd give to protecting your financial investments. Mentally wealthy individuals structure their days with absolute intention, creating boundaries around their time, guarding their energy like a finite resource, and protecting their focus from the constant assault of distractions that the modern world throws at them. Focus, in particular, has become the ultimate competitive advantage in our hyper-connected age. Pure presence and concentration can accomplish in 2 hours what might take 10 hours of distracted effort. While most people allow their attention to be fractured by notifications, noise, and the addiction to multitasking, the mentally wealthy train their attention like athletes train their muscles, with discipline, consistency, and strategic intensity. They understand that single tasking isn't just more efficient, it's the key to collapsing time and amplifying results exponentially. When you commit fully to what matters most, blocking out distractions and bringing your complete presence to the task at hand, you don't just work faster, you access levels of creativity and problem-solving that are impossible when your attention is scattered across multiple inputs. This focused approach creates what feels like magic in your productivity and results, but it's actually the natural consequence of aligned attention meeting clear intention. Write in the comments, "Focus is my superpower," if you're ready to start protecting these sacred assets with the respect they deserve. This mastery of focus and aligned attention creates the perfect foundation for understanding one of the most counterintuitive principles of wealth creation that trips up even the most motivated people. The harder you chase money, the more elusive it becomes. The more desperately you need a specific outcome, the more likely you are to repel it. This reveals the profound importance of practicing detachment, but not in the way most people think. Detachment isn't indifference or giving up on your dreams. It's actually the deepest form of trust you can develop. It means holding your vision clearly while releasing control over exactly how and when outcomes unfold. When you're desperate for money, opportunities have a way of slipping through your fingers because neediness carries the vibration of lack, and lack repels abundance. People can sense desperation, and it makes them uncomfortable rather than inspired to work with you. The transformation happens when detachment restores your sovereignty. You shift from "I need this to prove I'm worthy" to "I want this, but I'm not defined by whether I get it." This seemingly subtle change alters everything about your energy. You become magnetic rather than needy, confident rather than anxious, creative rather than controlling. Paradoxically, the moment you release your death grip on specific outcomes is often the moment they begin moving toward you. Behind the scenes, this detached approach allows you to take action without emotional chaos, consuming your decision-making process. Instead of working from fear, panic, or the pressure to force results, you learn to work from inspiration and aligned intention. You take consistent steps without being rigid about the exact form your success must take, or the precise timeline it must follow. This doesn't mean becoming passive or accepting whatever happens. It means you don't panic when results take longer than expected or when certain doors close unexpectedly. You hold your vision like a compass that guides your direction, not like a cage that imprisons your possibilities. When one path gets blocked, you trust that another will open. When progress feels slow, you focus on what you can control, rather than what you can't. This approach cultivates a resilience that keeps you in motion when others quit. While most people abandon their dreams at the first sign of resistance, or when their original plan doesn't work exactly as imagined, you develop the emotional flexibility to adapt, pivot, and persist. You understand that the journey rarely looks like what you initially expected, but that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it real. The impact on your wealth creation is extraordinary because you stop fighting against the natural flow of opportunities and start moving with it instead. Write in the comments, "I trust the process," if you're ready to embrace this powerful balance between vision and surrender. This balance between vision and surrender creates the perfect foundation for understanding how to accelerate your transformation through something most people completely overlook. The habits you build aren't just behavioral changes. They're mental expressions of who you're becoming. Every single daily action is either reinforcing your current identity or building evidence for your future self. Wealthy habits operate on a completely different level than the productivity tips most people focus on. Self-direction means you don't wait for motivation to strike or external validation to feel worthy of taking action. You've developed the internal authority to begin, to continue, and to course correct based on your own inner compass, rather than the opinions or energy of those around you. This isn't about being rigid or perfectionist. It's about becoming someone who can be trusted with their own dreams. The hidden truth behind discipline is that it's not about forcing yourself to do things you hate. True discipline means consistently choosing long-term alignment over short-term emotional reactions. Every promise you keep to yourself, waking up when you said you would, completing the project when it's no longer exciting, holding the boundary when it's inconvenient, deposits real confidence into your internal bank account. These small daily choices gradually shift your entire identity from someone who hopes things will work out to someone who makes things work out. Behind the scenes, this transformation is supported or sabotaged by something that operates so subtly you might not even notice its influence. Your environment, physical, emotional, relational, and digital, is either reinforcing your vision or constantly distracting you from it. Wealthy minds understand this and deliberately design their surroundings to inspire growth rather than drain energy. Clean, organized spaces aren't just aesthetically pleasing. They signal to your subconscious mind that you're worthy of living in beauty and order. Relationships that challenge you to expand and grow replace those that drain your energy or keep you playing small. The conversations you engage in, the content you consume, the people you spend time with. Every environmental choice is either supporting your transformation or subtly undermining it. This curation extends to your digital environment as well. The notifications you allow, the social media accounts you follow, the podcasts you listen to while commuting, all of these inputs are shaping your thoughts and expectations throughout the day. Most people allow their environment to happen to them, but mentally wealthy individuals take complete ownership of designing surroundings that support the person they're becoming rather than the person they've been. The impact compounds over time because your environment is constantly influencing your thoughts, and your thoughts are constantly shaping your decisions, and your decisions are constantly creating your reality. Write in the comments, "I design my environment," if you're ready to start curating your surroundings with the intention of someone who already lives in abundance. This deliberate curation of your environment creates the perfect foundation for understanding something that separates true wealth builders from those who give up at the first sign of difficulty. The way you relate to failure and setbacks will determine whether you build lasting prosperity or remain stuck in cycles of starting and stopping. Most people have been conditioned to see failure as the opposite of success, but the hidden truth is that failure isn't the enemy. It's actually part of the curriculum. The mentally wealthy operate from a completely different framework when things don't go according to plan. They see setbacks as teachers rather than verdicts on their worthiness or capability. Instead of collapsing into shame or giving up entirely, they've developed the practice of debriefing their failures to extract valuable data that makes them stronger and smarter for the next opportunity. Behind the scenes, this relationship with failure builds something far more valuable than just resilience. It builds identity. Every time you survive a challenge, recover from a disappointment, or learn from a mistake, you're gathering evidence that you're not as fragile as you once believed. Financial losses become tuition payments to real-world experience schools rather than proof that you're not cut out for success. This perspective transforms setbacks from identity threats into identity builders. The transformation happens because failure also serves another crucial function. It humbles the ego in ways that create sustainable success rather than temporary wins built on arrogance or unrealistic expectations. When you failed publicly, lost money, or had your plans completely derailed and still found the courage to begin again, you develop a quiet strength that can't be faked or manufactured. This leads us to perhaps the most fundamental principle underlying all wealth creation. You don't become what you want. You become what you believe you are at the deepest level. Beneath every financial goal you set, every strategy you implement, and every action you take, lie identity questions that most people never consciously examine. Who do you truly believe yourself to be when it comes to success and worthiness? What do you think you're capable of holding? What level of prosperity feels natural versus foreign? A millionaire's self-image isn't built on arrogance or entitlement. It's rooted in quiet certainty about their capability and preparedness to hold more wealth responsibly. They don't need to prove their worth to anyone because they've already decided who they are internally. This inner conviction shapes every decision they make, every risk they take, and every opportunity they pursue or pass by. The journey becomes about aligning your external reality with the internal identity you've consciously chosen, rather than hoping external success will finally make you feel worthy. Write in the comments, "I choose my identity," if you're ready to start building this millionaire self-image from the inside out. This journey of building a millionaire self-image from the inside out reveals something crucial that most people miss entirely in their pursuit of financial success. Money without meaning feels hollow even when you accumulate significant amounts. You've probably heard stories of wealthy people who achieved everything they thought they wanted, only to feel empty, restless, or disconnected from any sense of real fulfillment. This happens because they chased money as a goal, rather than understanding it as a tool. The mentally wealthy operate from a completely different paradigm. They seek alignment where money serves their deeper purpose, rather than substituting for it. They don't want wealth just to prove their worth or to buy status symbols that impress others. They want to fund freedom, create meaningful impact, express their creativity without financial constraints, and build a legacy that extends beyond their own lifetime. Their relationship with money becomes partnership rather than worship. They respect its power without being dominated by its pursuit. Behind the scenes, this alignment between money and meaning creates a sustainable motivation that carries you through challenges that would derail someone who's only chasing numbers. When your financial goals are connected to something larger than personal accumulation, you access deeper levels of energy and persistence. The setbacks don't feel personal because your identity isn't tied solely to the outcome. The journey itself becomes fulfilling because you're building something that matters to you at a soul level. This meaningful approach to wealth creation naturally leads to understanding one of the most powerful principles for accelerating abundance in your life. Giving becomes a radical declaration of abundance that signals to yourself and the world, "I am not empty." But here's what most people get wrong. Giving doesn't begin when you finally reach certain financial milestones or when you feel like you have enough to spare. It begins the moment you shift from identifying as someone who is lacking to someone who is already resourced. Giving your time, attention, encouragement, and knowledge declares trust that what flows through you exceeds what you desperately cling to. This isn't about being financially irresponsible or giving beyond your means. It's about operating from the energy of someone who knows they are a source rather than a sinkhole. Every act of generous giving, whether it's mentoring someone, sharing valuable insights, or supporting causes you believe in, reinforces your identity as someone who has something valuable to offer. The transformation happens because giving breaks the psychological grip of scarcity, thinking more effectively than almost any other practice. The moment you give freely, you disrupt the pattern of withholding and fear that keeps most people stuck in limitation consciousness. Write in the comments, "I give from abundance," if you're ready to start operating from the energy of someone who knows they are already resourced. This practice of giving from abundance creates the perfect foundation for understanding something that requires tremendous courage, but is absolutely essential for anyone serious about creating extraordinary wealth. At some point on this journey, logic will no longer be enough to guide you. There comes a moment when your spreadsheets, your plans, and your rational mind hit their limits, and you must develop something far more powerful: faith in the invisible process. True transformation requires faith in what you cannot yet see. But this isn't blind hope or wishful thinking. This is inner intelligence that understands how creation actually works in the real world. Everything visible in your life today, every building, every business, every relationship, every innovation, once existed as nothing more than invisible thought, vision, or possibility in someone's mind. Faith becomes the bridge between imagination and manifestation, between the idea and its physical expression. Behind the scenes, this faith operates as a form of intelligence that goes beyond what your logical mind can process. It recognizes patterns that aren't obvious, senses timing that can't be calculated, and perceives possibilities that haven't yet materialized. The mentally wealthy have learned to honor this invisible intelligence because they understand that the most significant breakthroughs often come from directions they never anticipated. This leads to one of the most challenging yet rewarding aspects of wealth consciousness: learning to act on intuition, even when logic protests loudly. Faith means trusting your internal compass, especially when external circumstances seem to contradict your inner knowing. The mentally wealthy listen deeply, create space for silence in their busy lives, and allow invisible guidance to come through nudges, patterns, and sudden clarity that arrives in moments of stillness. When that guidance comes, and it always does when you're quiet enough to receive it, they act even when the decision doesn't make perfect logical sense initially. This isn't recklessness, it's responsiveness to a deeper intelligence that sees connections and possibilities that the rational mind hasn't yet caught up to. They've learned to distinguish between fear-based hesitation and wisdom-based patience, between intuitive guidance and wishful thinking. The transformation happens because acting on intuitive guidance builds a relationship with the invisible forces that are always working behind the scenes in your favor. You begin to experience a flow and synchronicity that feels almost magical, but is actually the natural result of aligning your conscious efforts with deeper currents of possibility that most people never access because they're too busy trying to figure everything out mentally. Write in the comments, "I trust my inner knowing," if you're ready to start developing this profound relationship with invisible intelligence. This relationship with invisible intelligence naturally evolves into something that transforms not just your own wealth journey, but the impact you have on everyone around you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding true leadership becomes essential as your abundance grows. Most people think leadership comes from titles, authority, or external recognition, but the hidden truth is that real leadership begins with energy, not position. Leading from abundance means operating from wholeness, rather than needing to dominate others for power or control situations for safety. When you've developed genuine internal wealth, the emotional capital, mental resilience, and spiritual grounding we've been discussing, you naturally become someone who brings out the best in others, rather than feeling threatened by their strengths. You create environments where creativity thrives because you're not competing for limited resources or attention. Behind the scenes, this abundant leadership generates loyalty through making people feel capable rather than dependent. Instead of keeping others small so you can feel big, you elevate everyone around you because you understand that their success enhances rather than diminishes your own. People naturally gravitate toward leaders who make them feel seen, valued, and empowered to reach their own potential. The transformation deepens when you understand that abundant leaders operate from a fundamental principle that separates them from scarcity-based leadership. They don't hoard wisdom, connections, or access. They share these resources freely because they know that value multiplies when it's distributed, rather than locked away. This isn't naive generosity. It's strategic abundance thinking in action. They lift others without feeling smaller themselves, mentor without needing to be idolized, and open doors for people without keeping score of who owes them what. This generous approach creates what I call magnetic momentum, a force that cannot be purchased, manipulated, or faked. When you consistently add value to others' lives without expecting immediate returns, you build a reputation and network that becomes one of your most valuable assets. The impact extends far beyond just feeling good about helping others. This leadership style attracts opportunities, collaborations, and support that would be impossible to access through purely transactional relationships. People want to work with, invest in, and recommend those who have made their own lives better in some meaningful way. The journey reveals that the most successful people aren't those who climb over others to reach the top, but those who build others up as they rise. Write in the comments, "I lead through abundance," if you're ready to start using your growing wealth consciousness to elevate everyone around you. This magnetic momentum that comes from abundant leadership opens up the final and perhaps most profound understanding of what wealth actually means. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because there's something most people never realize about the true nature of prosperity. While everyone focuses on financial statements, bank balances, and investment portfolios, real wealth exists in dimensions that extend far beyond what can be measured in dollars. You have an infinite balance sheet that holds assets no accountant will ever calculate, but that determine the actual quality of your life. This invisible ledger contains your character, your energy, your relationships, and your presence. It holds the kindness you've shared, the peace of mind you've cultivated, the love you've given freely, and the inner strength you've built through facing challenges with grace. These are the assets that truly matter because they can never be taxed, stolen, or lost in market crashes. Behind the scenes, these invisible assets expand your capacity to experience life deeply, to create meaningful impact, and to build the kind of legacy that lasts far beyond any material accumulation. They're what make people remember you, what draws opportunities toward you, and what gives your life meaning when external circumstances change. The person who has developed emotional resilience, spiritual depth, and authentic relationships is wealthy in ways that money alone can never provide. The transformation comes when you recognize something that changes everything about how you see yourself and your journey. The final lesson isn't about acquiring more, but about recognizing what you've already built. Your mind, your heart, your soul, and your unique story have been accumulating wealth in ways you may not have fully appreciated or acknowledged. Every moment of courage when you chose to act despite fear. Every wound you've healed rather than allowing it to define you. Every time you chose authenticity over acceptance or truth over comfort. All of this represents valuable capital in your infinite account. You've been investing in yourself from the very beginning, building internal assets that form the foundation of everything else you'll ever create. This recognition shifts everything because you realize you're not starting from zero, you're not lacking what you need, and you're not waiting for external validation to confirm your worth. You are already the asset. You've always been wealthy in the ways that matter most. The external manifestation of that wealth is simply the world catching up to what has always been true about who you are underneath all the conditioning and doubt. Write in the comments, "I am already wealthy," if this deeper understanding of true abundance is resonating with your soul. This journey we've taken together reveals something beautiful about the people who make it all the way to the end of content like this. You're not just someone looking for quick fixes or surface-level motivation. You're someone who understands that real transformation happens through depth, through understanding the invisible principles that create lasting change. If you've stayed with me through this entire exploration of wealth consciousness, it tells me something important about who you are. You're ready for a different kind of conversation about success and abundance. You're willing to look beyond the obvious and examine the foundations that actually determine your results. That's exactly why I create content like this. There are so many people hungry for this deeper understanding of how prosperity really works, and I want to make sure you don't miss any of these insights. If this resonated with you, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel because we're going to continue diving into these transformative principles that most people never discover. Leave me a comment saying, "This message was meant for me," if you feel like this conversation found you at exactly the right moment. I read every single comment because connecting with people who are on this journey of conscious wealth creation is what makes this work meaningful. And if you felt that connection throughout our time together, a simple like would mean the world to me. It helps this message reach others who need to hear it, and it tells me you want more content that goes this deep. There's a video right here that complements this topic perfectly. It's about the daily practices that turn these principles into your lived reality. Click and continue with me over there, because the real magic happens when you start implementing what we've discovered together.